We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Dalet and Beis Meseches Yoma. This is Yoma Daf 44b. The Gemara is continuing to explain the difference between the area of the Heichel and the area between the Ulam, the entrance hall, and the Mizbeach. And again, the Gemara says, Ela b'shas haktorah, only during the time of the Ketoris and the Heichel, meaning the area between the entrance hall and the Mizbeach, the Ulam and the Mizbeach, it's only cleared out when they bring the Ketoris and the Heichel. It is not cleared out when they bring the Ketoris Lifnai v'Lifnim, the Kodesh Kadoshim, on Yom Kippur. But the Heichel itself, that's cleared out in both situations, whether you're doing the Ketoris of the Heichel, whether you're doing the Ketoris Lifnai v'Lifnim. But the Gemara continues, Va'iko Hamayla, but isn't there another strictness of the Heichel over the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach? The Ilu Meheichel Parshi bein Bikdusha Didei, bein Bikdusha Dilifnai v'Lifnim, because from the Heichel they separate whether by the Kedusha, its own Kedusha, or whether the Kedusha Lifnai v'Lifnim. Rashi here explains. Bikdusha means Matan Damim. It doesn't matter if you're placing the blood in the Heichel, or it doesn't matter if you're doing, again, the Ketoris in the Heichel. But when it comes to the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, the only time they separate is when you have something going on in the Heichel. Anything that's going on, Lifnai v'Lifnim, that's not a reason to clear out the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach. So why don't we mention that? And so the Gemara says, Amar Rava, Rava says, Shem Prisha Achasi. That's all the same idea. That's all what is being mentioned right over here, as Rashi over here says, Kula Chadam Maili. That's all one Maila. To Meheichel Parshi Mishum Lifnai v'Lifnim. The idea is, from the Heichel we clear out the area because of anything going on in the Kodesh Kadoshim. Bein B'Shvil Haktara, Ubein B'Shvil Matan Damim. Doesn't matter what's going on. It could be the Ketoris, it could be Matan Damim. It doesn't make a difference. And when it comes to the area between the entrance hall and the Mizbeach, we don't clear that area out for anything that's happening in the Kodesh Kadoshim. Once we already tell you that the Ketoris Lifnai v'Lifnim is not a reason to clear out that area, we don't need to also add in Matan Dam. It's all the same basic idea. Things going on in the Kodesh Kadoshim is not a reason to clear out the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, but it is a reason to clear out the area of the Heichel. The Gemara continues, Amar Mar, the master said, the Gemara is now quoting the Brisa that we had in the previous Amar, quoting the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, Kach Porshin B'Shas Matan Parkoin Mashiach, Upar Helam Dover Shel Tzibor, Usi'ire Avodas Kochavim. So Rabbi Yossi said they clear out the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach not only during the time of the Ketoris, but also during the time when they bring a carbon on behalf of a sin of the Kohen Gadol, on behalf of a sin of the Tzibor, or on behalf of a sin of Avodah Zarah. And the Gemara says, Minolan, what is the source for this? The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Pedas, Rabbi Pedas says, Asya Kapara Miyom HaKippurim. We learn this out from a Gzeira Shava. It says Kapara by Yom Kippur, and it says Kapara by these as well, and therefore we learn out it's the same basic halacha. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Acha bar Ava, Rav Acha bar Ava says, they have over here an alternate gear, so Rav Ada bar Ava. Rav Ada bar Ava says, Shma Mino, you see from this, Milos Doraisa, the different levels of Kedusha in the Beis HaMikdash are all Doraisa. And these are halacha l'Moshe Misinai. Because if you think the different levels of Kedusha in the Beis HaMikdash are only D'Rabbanan, what is the difference that you say you're not allowed to be in the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach because of a suffix? Maybe you'll accidentally enter the Heichel. Mikul Azar Nami Nifashu. They should separate them from the entire Azara. Dilma Mikru V'Aili, because maybe they'll make a mistake and accidentally go into the Heichel. And Rashi over here explains, Milos Doraisa, Milos Shamanu Chachamim B'Mishnah Meseches Kelim Parakama. These are the different levels of Kedusha. They're enumerated in Meseches Kelim. The Kamar Hazam Harabayis Mekudash Mi Yerushalayim. It says the Harabayis is more holy than Yerushalayim. V'Hachel Me Harabayis V'Ezras Noshim Min Hachel V'Ezras Yisrael Mishal Noshim V'Shal Kohanim Mishal Yisrael Ubein HaUlam V'La Mizbeach Minu Azara. It says the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach is more holy than the Azara. V'Hachel Mi Bein HaUlam V'La Mizbeach. The Heichel more than the Ulam and between the Ulam and the Mizbeach. Doraisa. The point is all these different levels of Kedusha have to be Doraisa. Halacha l'Moshe Misinai V'Hachei Gemiri Lahu. This is a tradition that we have. Halacha l'Moshe Misinai. Hilkach, therefore, le'inyan prisha nami dekra lo itzrich prisha ela meheichel. We know that the pasuk says you only have to separate from the heichel. It doesn't say anything about separating from the area between the ulam and the mizbeach. Kedechsiv, like the pasuk says, v'chol adam lo yeh ba'oel moed. It says you can't be in the oel moed. That's a reference to the heichel. V'yasur rabbanan v'gazer bein ulam v'la mizbeach. This whole idea that you can't be between the ulam and the mizbeach is just a gezeira midrabbanan. Dilma mikri v'ayel laheichel, because we're afraid you might accidentally go into the heichel. V'lo nimshach hashara azara la'osa gezeira. And we're not saying that the entire azara is part of that gezeira. You can be in other parts of the azara. Shaharei bein ha'ulam v'lamizbeach kedusha achasi, and the reasoning is as follows: because between the ulam and the mizbeach is one level of kedusha. Ushar kol ha'azara kedusha achas. The rest of the azara is a lower level of kedusha. Ubein ha'ulam v'lamizbeach gufa gezera. Even between the area of the ulam and the mizbeach that you can't be there during these times, that itself is just a gezera. V'havelo shar azara gezera legezera. You do the rest of the azara and you say you can't be there either. That would be a double gezera. Now, if you think that the Mishnah is enumerating levels of Kedusha that are only Derabanan, but if you think that the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach and the entire Azara really is one Kedusha, Ma'ishna, then already you don't know why you should make a distinction. As the Gemara over here says, because if you think that these areas of Kedusha are Derabanan, what's the difference that you're concerned between the Ulam and the Mizbeach? They might go into the Heichel. Again, the entire Azara, you should make the same Gezerah and say, maybe they'll accidentally go into the Heichel. And so the Gemara answers, between the area of the Ulam and the Mizbeach, even if it's not a different Kedusha, Kaven de lo mifsik midi, since there is no physical barrier, lo minkar milsa, people will make a mistake, they'll accidentally go straight into the Heichel. But the rest of the Azara, Kaven de ikam Mizbeach achitzon, you have there the Mizbeach sitting there. The mavzik, it's a separation, so minkar milsa, people will remember they're not going to go that far. So even if on a doraisa level the entire Azara was one Kedusha, it would still make sense to say that you clear out the area between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, but you don't necessarily clear out the entire Azara. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava says, Shma Mino, you see from all of this, Kedushas Ulam v'Heichel Chadam Milsi, the Kedusha of the entrance hall and the Heichel itself must be the same. Because if you think that the Ulam has a lower Kedusha than the Heichel, Ulam Guve Gezerah, the fact that you can't be in the Ulam, that itself is a Gezerah. V'Nekim v'Nigzor Gezerah leGezerah. Now we make another Gezerah on top of that you can't be between the Ulam and the Mizbeach. The Gemara says not necessarily, no. Ulam uvein ha'ulam v'la mizbeach the kedusha. It could be that the entrance hall and the area between the entrance hall and the mizbeach, that's all one kedusha. Heichel v'ulam shtei kedushas. It could be that the heichel and the ulam are actually two separate kedushas, and therefore it makes sense. The heichel you can't go into on a doraisa level, and then the ulam and the area between the ulam and the mizbeach, that's all a derabanan level that they had to clear out that area. The Gemara continues at the two dots, quoting the Mishnah, B'chol Yoma Yechosa b'shel kesef v'chulu. It said every other day they would scoop up with a silver pan and pour into a golden pan. My time, what's the reason? Torah chasal mamon and shal Yisrael. The Torah cares about the money of Klal Yisrael. Rashi says, "V'anonami chasinon v'chasias kecholim shochagas esaklim v'chasarto." If you're going to scoop it up with the golden pan, that's going to ruin it. So we don't want to ruin that pan. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, quoting the Mishnah again. V'hayom an Yom Kippur chosav b'shel zav uvo hayamachnes. He would scoop up with the golden pan and just enter straight with that. My time, what's the reason why he didn't pour from one to the other? Mishum chulsha to Kohen Gadol, because of the weakness of the Kohen Gadol, it's going to be too much of a bother to pour from one kli to the other. As Rashi says, Mishum chulsha shetorachu laros mikli al kli, it's a tircha to pour from one kli to another kli. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, quoting the Mishnah, B'chol yom b'shel arbas kavin v'chulu. It said every day he would scoop up with a pan that was 4 kav, and then he would pour it into a pan that was 3 kav. Tana was taught, Nispazru lo kav gecholim mechavdon liyama. That extra kav that spilled out, he would sweep it into the canal that was below the Beis Hamikdash. Rashi says, kav gecholim k'shemar shel arbas kavin l'soch shel shlosha. When you pour 4 kav into 3, Nispazru lo kav gecholim hu mechavdon l'soch amos silon shel azara hayotzes l'nachal kidron. He would sweep it into the canal below the Beis Hamikdash that went out to Nachal Kidron. So that's what it says he would do with that extra kav. The Gemara now says, Tani Chada, there's one brisa that said kav, there was an extra kav, but there's another brisa that says that it was 2 kav that was extra. So the Gemara says, B'shlom hach Tani kav, I understand kav, Rabbanan, that follows the opinion of the Rabbanan, as we just said, he scooped it up originally with a pan of 4, poured it into a pan of 3, that leaves 1 extra kav. Elahach the Tani kabayim, but the one that says kabayim, money, who's that? Lo Rabbanan, it's not the Rabbanan, v'lo Rabbi Yossi. It's not Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah either, as Rashi over here says, v'lo Rabbi Yossi, di Rabbi Yossi, shaloshim espazrin. According to Rabbi Yossi, there's going to be 3 that are scattered, because Rabbi Yossi said the original pan was a saw actually is 6 kav, so you're pouring from 6 kav into 3 kav, you have 3 kav extra. There's no opinion here that says that you have 2 kav that are extra. So the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda says, Rabbi Yishmael ben Oshel Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. The author of that brisa is actually Rabbi Yochanan, the son, Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. The Tanya, as we learned in a brisa, Rabbi Yishmael ben Oshel Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka Omer. Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, says, B'shel kabayim hoya machnes. He would actually enter in a pan with two. So if you start off with a 4-kav pan, pouring it into a 2-kav pan, that's going to be 2 kav extra. Rav Ashi says, Afilu Tema Rabbi Yossi. You can even say it's Rabbi Yossi. V'achi Kamer. Here's what Rabbi Yossi was actually saying. B'chol yom hayachosa b'shel sa'ah midbaris. Every day he would scoop it up with a saw of midbaris, of the wilderness. U'ma'ara l'soch shloshas kav in Yerushalmios. And then pour it into 3 kav, measured in the Yerushalmi fashion, as Rashi over here says. Sa'ah midbaris sheishas kav in midbarios. A sa'ah of the midbar was actually 6 kav. Ukashabol Yerushalayim, when they came to Yerushalayim, Hosifu Shasos Alamidos, they added to all the measurements by a 6th. Venasos Sheshas Kav in Midbarios, Chamish Yerushalmios. So it came out that 6 kav in the midbar were now 5 Yerushalmi. Ukashachosa B'shal Sa'ah Midbar. So therefore, when he's scooping up with the saw of the midbar, Umar Lasoch Shloshas Kav in Yerushalmios, but pouring into a pan that's 3 kav Yerushalmi measure, Nispazru Lo Kabayin Yerushalmios. What ends up happening is you have 2 kav Yerushalmios that are extra. And so the idea over here is the 6 kav Midbarios is the same as 5 kav Yerushalmios. So he's taking a pan of 5 kav Yerushalmios and pouring it into a pan of 3 kav Yerushalmios, leaving 2 kav extra. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots, quoting the Mishnah, B'chol yom haisa kaveda v'ayom kal. Every day the pan was heavy. Today it was light on Yom Kippur. Tana, it was taught, B'chol yom haisa galda ava. Every day the walls of this pan were thick. V'hayom rach. Today they were soft, they were thinner, in order to make it more lightweight. B'chol yom haisa katsara v'ayom arucha. Every other day the handle would be short. Today the handle was longer. My time, and what's the reason? Kadesh today is rosh al kohen gadol misayato, so that the kohen gadol could use his arm to help support the pan. Tana, was taught, B'chol yom lo haya lo niyashtik. Every day there was no ring on this pan. V'hayom haya lo niyashtik, but today it had a ring. Divrei ben Haskan. This is the opinion of Ben Haskan. Rashi over here says, niyashtik tabas barosha. There was a ring at the top of it. Shemakashke shumashmiya kol. It made a sound. It was like a bell that made a sound. Mishum v'nishma kol u'bevo v'gomer, because the pasuk says there should be a sound as he is entering. So that's why again it had this ring. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. B'chol yom haya zahava yarok. Every day the gold was green. Amar Rav Chisda says, Shiva zohavim hein. There are 7 kinds of gold. Zohav, there's regular gold. V'zav tov, there's good gold. V'zav ophir, there's gold that comes from ophir. V'zav mufaz, that's going to be explained in the Gemara. V'zav shachut, there's zav shachut. V'zav sagor, there's zav sagor. V'zav parvayim, there's zav parvayim. And now the Gemara explains. Zav v'zav tov, where do you see the idea of gold and good gold? Tichsiv, like the pasuk says, Uzahav ha'aretz hahi tov. It says the gold of that land was good. Rashi says, Michlal de'ika zav stama. That already implies that there's stam gold, there's regular gold, and there's good gold. Zav ophir, what is zav ophir? Da'asi me ophir, it comes from ophir. Zav mufaz, what is zav mufaz? And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Memhei Amud Aleph.